Heading in tonight for Ari Melber, we start with Donald Trump's impeachment crisis, a stampede of damning facts gathered by the day, and a legal defense that appears increasingly erratic. Today, Trump was pressed on his stonewalling of Congress and his refusal to comply with those subpoenas. In fact, he suggested that the fight could go all the way to the Supreme Court.
The whole thing is a scam. It's a fix. And we wrote a letter yesterday, and probably ends up being a big Supreme Court case.
All right, so at this point, Trump's strategy, it's pretty clear. Obstruct, deflect, confuse, and if all else fails, hope the Supreme Court, two justices of which he appointed, come and save him. Even as new facts emerged today, the full memo from the first whistleblower released with new details about the call, and the New York Times pointing out with details about what went down inside the State Department as frustrations grew over Trump blocking military aid for Ukraine. Now, against that drumbeat, Trump supporters are pushing increasingly bizarre narratives. One Trump ally and former advisor appeared on a Fox News panel with Rudy Giuliani, where he referred to Democrats' probe as a regicide, which, if you don't know, like I didn't know earlier today, is actually the murder of a king.
What you're seeing is regicide. This is regicide by another name, fake impeachment. I refuse to call them whistleblowers. These two non-entities are suicide bombers that the Democrats have unleashed.
All right, so you heard that. Regicide, suicide bombers. That is the language now coming from Trump's camp. A remarkable contrast from how conservatives used to talk about impeachment. Today, a moment resurfacing from the congressman, Mike Pence, speaking in 2008 about what the standard should be for impeaching a president.
This business of high crimes and misdemeanors goes to the question of whether or not the person serving as president of the United States put their own interests, their personal interests, ahead of public service.
That's the Vice President, Mike Pence, when he was a congressman back in the day. Matt Miller, chief DOJ spokesman during the Obama administration, is with us. Jason Johnson, politics editor for TheRoot.com, is also with us. And the Daily Beast's Betsy Woodruff-Swan is as well. Great to have all of you with us. Lots to break down here. Matt, let me begin with you. What do you make today of the president subtly invoking the Supreme Court and that this battle is likely to end up there?
You know, I think they'd love for it to end up in the Supreme Court because that means we wouldn't have any decision on whether the documents they're obstructing Congress from obtaining had to be turned over until, sometime next year, maybe even past the 2020 election. That's been their strategy all along, not just with this investigation, but with the previous investigations the House launched. Deny the House everything they're entitled to, make them go to court, and then drag it out because there's a lengthy appeals process. I think, though, this one is different in that the House obviously would like to get the documents that they've subpoenaed, but they're not. They would like to get witness testimony, but they're not going to wait for the administration to turn them over, and they're not going to wait for the end of court battles. They already have a whistleblower who came forward and supplied them a lot of information. I think they got one witness, Kurt Volker, who was willing to quit rather than stay inside the administration and be prohibited from testifying. And I suspect what they'll do is push forward, given that they already have enough evidence that the president pressured the Ukrainian government to launch an investigation. They already have evidence of a quid pro quo in those Kurt Volker texts that were released. There are obviously things that they would like to get their hands on. For example, more evidence about the withholding of funds from Ukraine. But I don't think they're going to wait for the courts. They're going to go forward because they have enough evidence, and they'll probably get more as more witnesses come forward, despite the White House trying to block them. So
to that point, Jason, the White House, as we mentioned, refusing to cooperate with these demands. Realistically, besides going the path of the courts, as Matt was just spelling out, what options do the Democrats have beyond subpoenas here, if anything?
Well, their option is to just have a vote. Right? They don't require this information. And I'll be honest, we can take the headline, White House stymies Congress, White House refuses to hand over information. We could run that same headline every 3 months since this administration began. So I don't think, for once, the Democrats are not shocked and amazed that the White House is lying or not providing information. They can have this vote whenever they want. And here's the other key part about this. Every piece of information that they've asked for, that this administration refuses to come forward with, can be part of a complaint about obstruction of justice into an an investigation of inappropriate behavior that the president has already admitted to. So that is their option, to take everything that Donald Trump is doing now and make that a part of their case, and a stronger case that, for once, according to the polls, not only are people in favor of the impeachment inquiry, but we have now moved to a point where Americans are actually, recent polls, so Americans are actually in favor of Donald Trump being removed from office in a vote. And that's something that works in the Democrats' favor.
And interesting in all of this, today you got former Congressman Trey Gowdy now is going to serve as outside counsel for the Trump team. And it's amazing because if you go back to 2012, here he is actually denouncing Democrats for not cooperating with congressional oversight. Watch this clip.
The notion that you can withhold information and documents from Congress, no matter whether you're the party in power or not in power, is wrong. Respect for the rule of law must mean something irrespective of the vicissitudes of political cycles.
All right, so that man that you just saw on your screen there, who made that huge appeal about nobody should withhold power from Congress, withhold information from Congress's power to have oversight, is now going to defend and justify the president withholding information from Congress. Are those words, Betsy, going to come back and haunt Trey Gowdy?
No question. And these political cycles have certainly gone through a heck of a vicissitude, as Gowdy might put it. The fact that Republicans spent 8 years of the Obama administration laying out in the most robust and detailed way possible arguments that the executive branch has to comply with subpoenas and oversight requests from the legislative branch is something that's going to create challenges for all of them. That said, the White House's legal strategy faces a really complex difficulty because there's tension within the White House regarding how White House counsel Pat Cipollone is approaching this particular issue. Cipollone is treating it perhaps more as a legal fight than a political fight. It seems like in the White House counsel's office, people to an extent are still in Mueller mode, thinking in terms of winning court fights rather than thinking of this as primarily a political undertaking. We know that impeachment at its core is a political tool. And for the most part, the president's outside allies view the biggest threat to him as impacting the way people might vote. But Cipollone is approaching it more from the legal side, and that's generated a little bit of friction.
And the interesting thing, again, in this, Betsy, is that you got the GOP inviting Giuliani to testify. Lindsey Graham wants him to come up to the Hill to talk about Ukraine corruption. Watch his latest appearance on Fox News.
I just drove through Salem.
Oh, okay.
They required witnesses to face the witch, and some witches were acquitted. It's ridiculous. The only place I can think of where we had trials like this is in the Soviet Union. Remember the president used to call this a witch hunt? This is now worse than a witch hunt.
The witches had it better, in other words.
They had more rights.
The witches had it better. What do you make of that? I mean, what's the risk here, Betsy, for the GOP to kind of have this narrative floating out there between the regicide, the president is not a king, yet his defenders making reference to him being a king. Others are calling this a coup. Now you got Mayor Giuliani or former Mayor Rudy Giuliani talking about witches.
For the duration of his time serving as president's personal outside counsel, Giuliani over and over and over has said things publicly that have undermined the legal arguments he's trying to make in defense of the president. Who can forget the moment when he made the bombshell admission about the president paying off porn star Stormy Daniels in the final weeks of the presidential campaign on Sean Hannity's Fox News show? Giuliani creates the most problems for his client when he's in a setting that he feels to be friendly, and no one on Capitol Hill is going to make Giuliani feel more relaxed than Lindsey Graham, the Republican chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, who is incredibly close with Trump, who hangs out with him and golfs with him all the time. Giuliani sitting down in Graham's committee room is perhaps the most perilous moment of the impeachment process for Trump.
Hey, Matt, today the California Congressman Ro Khanna telling Hallie Jackson the Democrats need to move forward with a vote. Listen to this.
Here's the reality. We can't count on the White House. We can't count on the courts. They want to delay this. We need to move forward. We need to look at what evidence we have, make the best effort, make the case, and have a vote on the articles of impeachment.
What's the play here, you think, Matt? Should they go ahead and actually hold a vote, have a vote on impeachment, knowing that the White House is going to stall this, and if, as you were saying, this could delay into 2020, go ahead and have the vote, get this process started?
Yeah, I think they do. I don't think they need to do it next week or the next few weeks, but I don't think they should wait for the White House to comply. I don't think that they should wait for the end of the court battles. I think there's some more investigating they can do. They haven't talked to the first whistleblower yet. There's a second whistleblower they need to talk to, and there is a reason for them to keep sending subpoenas to the White House, keep sending subpoenas to individuals at the State Department, even if you know the White House isn't going to comply. What it does is it puts pressure on the system, and when there's pressure on the system, two types of people can come forward. One are people inside the government who think there was wrongdoing and they want to blow the whistle on the wrongdoing, and they're willing to come forward and testify, even if it means risking their career. And the second are people who are close to the president, who have some culpability. And if they see that this is going wrong, if they see that the president might go down over it, or if they see that they may become a fall guy, their interests change. And so they don't want to protect the president. They don't want to protect the secretary anymore. And so they come forward the way Kurt Volker did and testify and turn over text messages and turn over evidence. So I think there is still time for them to push forward to gather more evidence. They don't need to go to an impeachment vote now in the next few weeks, but certainly, it can't stretch long into next year.
Right.
All right, Matt Miller, Betsy Woodruff-Swan, thank you both. Jason Johnson, stick around for us. We've got a lot more to talk to you about. Coming up, fresh revelations from the Ukraine whistleblower, a new memo with information not contained in the official White House readout, plus global outrage over Trump's betrayal.